Hello and welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I am here to discuss, as always, mind-body issues, the column system, how I think about mind-body issues. And of course, for people who are just joining or just discovering me, the column system is something that I developed when I was getting better from 8 years of mind-body back pain. Of course, during that time, I didn't know it was mind-body back pain. Although for some of you, you've been working on mind-body issues, knowing it's mind-body issues, still not quite getting better or maybe getting stuck in really big ways. And a lot of people reach out to me saying that what I say resonates to them and helps them understand why they're not getting better. Rita, I see you. Hi, Kristen Park. Thanks for joining us. Haj Dari Bledi has joined us here. And Tula, I will be with you in a second. I see your question. I'll be with you in 1 sec. I do want to just talk about ways you can get better. The primary thing that you guys need to get better is answers. You need things to make sense. So that's what I work towards here at the Q&A. That's what I work towards in all the work that I do. Included in that, I have pre-recorded seminars that take you through the whole idea of mind-body experience. It even covers the full field. Why does one person say this? Why does another person say this? It was very hard for me to make sense of that and get answers. So these seminars and the things that I talk about, they're all ways to organize that information and understand it. And ultimately, when you understand what's happening, you won't be scared anymore. You'll feel like, okay, I see how I can get better. Rose Stewart Wellness has joined us as well. Hi, Kristen Park. Thanks for saying hi. So the seminars are one way to go. I have two versions of them now, and they're both really worth it depending on what you want. Sometimes people may want both of them. One is an introductory course. It's just 50 minutes long. It's broken down into 10 easy parts just to give the basic idea of what the column system is, so you can kind of dip your feet in and see if it makes sense to you. You certainly can ask me questions and I'll answer them here as well. The full seminar takes you through everything. And it's really designed to get into how you can get on your way towards crushing doubt, which is, of course, what I do. Then there are the groups. You can come talk with me on a weekly basis, or it's actually 1, 2, or 3 times a week. And that's something I found was necessary so that people could apply what they'd learned. So lots of ways to do it. We can talk about it as we go. Feel free to ask me questions about what I do, how I can help, how you can understand your symptoms. Whatever questions you have, those are the key. Your questions are gold. So let's get to them. Okay. Rose Stewart Wellness, thanks for saying hi. Really good to have you here. Okay, Tula. Let's bring your question up. Tula says, hi, Dan. I overdid it and feel overwhelmed with moving and financial and family matters. What's the best way to take a small bite of the elephant at a time? So first of all, Tula, that's an expression that we certainly used in my family. How do you eat an elephant? And the answer is 1 bite at a time. So what Tula is talking about is how to manage a very big task by doing it little by little. So Tula, I think that the best way that you can start to make these into small bites is, first of all, to recognize that your overwhelmed feeling is actually doubt. This is doubt coming in and saying, Tula, you can't handle this. You're not going to be able to do it. Doubt makes everything feel overwhelming. The feeling of being overwhelmed is doubt. And so the very first line of defense is always fight back against doubt. Now, once you do that, you could then look at it and say, okay, now how do I make small bites out of this in the actual logistics? But the first step, Tula, is make sure you don't give in to doubt here. Doubt's going to try to convince you can't handle this. It's too much. You're going to freak out. You're going to have a setback. That's doubt for you. One thing that I can recommend to you that has been of comfort to me as I've worked at these things is to recognize that just by being aware of doubt, just by keeping it in our awareness, it can't really win. It can win maybe some temporary battles. It can knock us on our heels a little bit, but it will never do anything of a serious nature if you just keep it in your conscious mind. So Tula, let's start there. Speaking of 1 bite at a time, I like to offer, a little bite-sized part that you can latch onto, explore, and then we go from there. So let's start there. Let's start with the fact that just being aware of doubt is something that's going to minimize how bad it's going to get, and it can shift the lens through which you're seeing all this other stuff. We'll start there, and we'll take it from there. Okay. All right. Jane Smith, good to see you here. Jane says, "Hi, Dr. Dan. Thanks for giving us what you didn't get." Thanks, Jane. That is literally how I designed everything that I do. Regarding conflicting info, do you agree with Dr. Hanscom? David Hanscom was a back surgeon. He is still very much in the mind-body scene, but he doesn't do back surgeries anymore. With this statement: whatever approach you work with, you must learn tools to become aware and calm down. I do agree with him on that. There probably will be ways in which, if you get into the details, he would probably say some things that wouldn't be exactly how I would go about it. But what he's saying is at base very similar to what I'm saying, which is this. First of all, I talk about building a system within my system, and Jane, you know this very well. That's part of how what I hear him saying when he's saying you must learn tools to become aware and calm down, because I think what he's saying is not everybody can do it the same way. You've got to think about what's going to work for you. And so we're all building a toolbox. To me, that's a big part of what the columns are. They're tools that you can use, you can bring in at different times when they're needed. But what David Hanscom's saying here about becoming aware and calming down, I think I understand your question, Jane, because there is a part in it that isn't totally in line with what I would say, though it does fit into what I would say. Becoming aware is part of what you need to do. Calming down is part of what you need to do. However, what I think is most important is getting to a place where you feel that you can understand what is happening. Because a lot of people concentrate on calming down, and they do things like meditation or telling themselves they're safe or neural rewiring, all of these exercises to try to change things. And here's the thing. I find that if you understand what's happening and you have a good understanding of why you can get better, you will calm down. You don't even have to work at it. It will happen because you're giving yourself what you need to calm down. Becoming aware, meanwhile, that relates to the emotions side of things. You do need to be aware of those things, certainly for the emotions column. But the good news is this. In my column system, not everything is about awareness. Some of it's about just calling it to mind, just like I said about doubt. Just have it in your awareness. It can't hurt you that much if that's happening. And if that's a form of awareness that David Hanscom's talking about, then yes, I agree. So overall, yeah, I think you've got to learn your tools. Becoming aware is important. Calming down is important. And I just would add, though I don't think he would disagree, understanding what's going on is incredibly important. How are you supposed to feel confident that you can get better unless you understand what's happening? Okay. Dorisa says, "Hi, Dan and everyone. Saw your interview. It was great. Thanks, Dorisa. I imagine you're talking about my interview with Jen Johnson. She was great. She was a fantastic host. I don't know if that was the right interview, so if it wasn't, please let me know. But that was an interview that I really enjoyed and was my last one that I did. And I felt that there was a calmness in both of us that we could relate to from how we've come through our healing journey. So I would be really interested to hear, Dorisa, what you thought about it. For those of you who didn't get to see it, I sent out a link in my newsletter. So if you're not on the newsletter, it's a really good way to get the latest information on what it is that we're doing. You can go to www.crushingdoubt.org, and at the bottom of that front page is a way to sign up for the newsletter. I can send out the link in other ways, but that's just the easiest way. So I encourage people to sign up. Thanks, Teresa. She says, yes, that is the one. So I would love to hear what specifically you thought about it, and let's talk about it. Okay, Robert Stefan, hello from Houston, Texas. Hello, Robert. Welcome. If you have questions or comments, anything you want to know about or share with us, please do hop right in. Feel free. Okay, we've got a comment coming in from Rose Stewart Wellness on Instagram. She says, this is really helpful. I have an acute illness at the moment, which is triggering my fear. I think I need to be aware of the doubt. Okay, so when she said this is really helpful, she was responding to what I was saying to, I think it was Tula, that just being aware is protection. Being aware of the doubt, yes, that's protection. Nothing bad is going to happen. When we get an acute illness or injury or symptom, we get worried. That's what doubt does. It pounces. By the way, Bun Barina, I want to say hi to you on Instagram as well. But doubt is looking for these opportunities to pounce. And speaking of acute illnesses, when I got COVID, one thing I was aware of is I knew me. I do tend to freak out a little bit at first when I get some kind of illness. I was like, well, what if I get this worse than other people? What if there are lasting effects? What if? Think about that phrase, what if? What if captures so much about what goes on in the realm of doubt? We start asking what if. Here's what I want to encourage you. The body is very, very good at recovering. It recovers from illnesses, it recovers from injuries all the time. It heals all the time. So the only thing that can linger are symptoms that are caused by fear and doubt. Fear is what I call the emotional form of doubt. And so you want to push back against that. If you do just that, Rose, you're going to be in a lot better shape getting through this. Nothing bad's going to happen. Now, in the meantime, there's something else you can do with acute symptoms, because even if you have a clear illness, you could think about the emotional component of what's happening. And that can shed some light on what it is that your symptoms are doing. And in fact, sometimes some of your symptoms might be related to the illness and some might be related to something like emotion. I have been dealing with a foot injury, which is getting much better. But I have found, as I sorted things out, wow, it's amazing to see all over again how much of an emotional component some of this has. And it's incredibly convincing because it's physical and it hurts or it feels uncomfortable. So don't underestimate what the mind and body can create, and spend some time thinking about those emotions. But number one line of defense to me, if there's doubt there, always work on the doubt first. Rose, please do let me know if you need more information on that, or, more of a roadmap to go from there. Okay. Thanks for your comment. Okay. Chrissy Lynn Eden. Hi, Dan. So still, no matter what I do, I cannot get this stiffness out of my back, especially the mid to low back muscles. If I sit down and then try to get up, it's so stiff, even in my legs, it's awful. How is this not something serious after 3 years? She has one more comment here. Do MRIs check for issues in muscles? Because I just can't imagine nothing is wrong in certain areas that hurt so much it's horrible. Okay. Just making sure. Okay. I wanted to make sure Chrissy didn't have another part. All right. So Chrissy, I really get where you're coming from. I certainly understand the frustration. Anything that goes into the years of suffering or even months, that's a long time. And it can get people worried about whether they're going to get better. So I want to reinforce some things that can help you see, why is it going the way that it's going. I want to remind you of some things that we've talked about. And this is always the way I answer questions. And this is true in group too. Whenever I answer a question, it's not just for the person who asked it, it's for everybody. I want it to fit into the column system, and so that you guys can feel, oh, I understand it. So, Chrissy, there's a reason that this particular symptom hasn't gotten better just yet. And yet I want to remind you, if I have this right, which I think I do, but you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. In the times that we've been interacting in this Q&A, a couple of emails, hoping to get you into the groups sometime soon. Because the groups can really speed things up because there's a lot more give and take, and I can get you even more specific answers. But in the time that we've been working together, your fear and doubts have actually gone down from what I can see, and so have your symptoms from what you've told me. Not this symptom, but other symptoms. And to me, that's something you want to hold on to as very, very good news. All we've been doing is talking. We've just been exchanging ideas about this, and at least some of the symptoms have changed. So you must, I imagine you're thinking, but why doesn't this symptom change? Well, I think you know me well enough to know, and what I talk about well enough to know, that what I'm going to say here. You have much more doubt about this symptom. And when you have doubts about a particular symptom, it makes that thing act up more or stay stuck more. So in my rehab on my foot right now, There's a particular exercise that really felt scary to do, and it led to a symptom. That's what I call a doubt trigger. It probably was 100% doubt, maybe some soreness from having not kind of worked it out, but not much. And I was freaking out, and it was getting worse. Then, and this happened, by the way, about half an hour before I came up for the show. And I went to do the exercise the next time, and I said, let me do an experiment here. I'm going to try to go into this thinking, I think this is doubt. I'm going to push back against it. And I think most of it is going to be relatively fine. And the exercises were literally 5 times easier than they were before, instantly. Now, I'm not saying you should be able to do that right away. I'm just saying I can show you how to do this. Because what's happening here is you have one symptom that you're viewing as different than the others. And that means doubt can play there. And play it does. So it has you convinced. And what's more convincing than the fact that it hasn't moved for 3 years? But it has you convinced that it's not going to move. And I want to remind you, you've only really just begun doing this doubt work. And so symptoms can last for, 10, 20, 30, 50 years if doubt isn't addressed. That's why my back pain lasted as long as it did. It lasted for 8 years. Then I discovered Sarno, started to make some sense of some things. And after about 2 months of working on it, about 3 days into reading The Divided Mind, it really clicked for me. And the doubt went way down, and the symptoms basically went away. It took a little bit of extra work, but I was doing flips in the pool 3 days later. And this was from a symptom I thought would never go away. And the stiffness was unbelievable. So, Chrissy, when I hear you, I think, this sounds exactly like me. I totally get it. But I want to encourage you. I've heard this before. And by the way, it is that stiff and awful. It can hurt everywhere. And you asked, does an MRI check for these issues? It actually does. MRIs can show various things in muscles. It usually can't show soreness. But the reality is you've got to keep it in mind that the mind is perfectly capable of making these symptoms happen. I just have to convince you the mind is also capable of taking them away. Well, first I have to convince you they're making it also. More convincing is needed because you still have doubt, but nothing else is happening. This is 100% doubt, I promise you. But it doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what you think. So let's keep talking about it, and we'll go from there. Chrissy did have a follow-up. She said, I'm sorry. I'm just so frustrated. I just want this to go away, and it won't. I get it. Okay. Yes, that's correct about my doubt going down, but the stiffness will not stop no matter what. Sad face. Okay. Just want to encourage you, Chrissy. Your doubt about this hasn't gone down yet. This is one reason why the groups are particularly excellent, because I can really dig into a specific doubt. I can get you to articulate it. I can get you to even observe that you're actually thinking it's true. You're having a doubt you think is true. You think that this will not go away. And I get it. I don't blame you at all. I want you to know that's totally empathic and supportive at the same time. And at the same time, I want to encourage you. I can help you get rid of this. We just have to push back against doubt. I'm not going to let it fool me. And I want you to not let it fool you. Okay, Dorisa is giving me feedback on the Lynn. I'm going to get to your question in a second. Sorry, I just missed it. Okay, so Doris's talking about the podcast that I did with Jen Johnson. She said how she had you break down your background and how she asked questions about your system. She did such a great job. She's just an amazing presence and very clear that she understands it from the inside out. Okay, Catherine Toomer, I want to say hi to you. Sarah Igo, good to see you here as well. Rose Stewart Wellness says, thanks, Dan. Agreed. I need to consider my recent emotions. Also that I'm on holidays from work and perhaps I have time now for some processing. Yes. And listen, remember, having symptoms is processing in a way. So maybe you're in the middle of processing through the body to some degree. Let's see if we can get some answers about it. The body tells all. It's your best friend, even though it doesn't feel like it a lot of the time, especially when you're feeling tortured by the symptoms. But actually, it's trying to tell you something. And I'm an interpreter, so I can help you understand that. And then I can help you become an interpreter as well. Okay, Lynn Slavensky, good to see you here. Loved your longer course. Thank you, Lynn. Great information. Question. I had an uptick during the night, which woke me up. I could not remember a dream. How can I understand and deal with this? Okay, first, I do want to comment on for people who love the longer course. It for many people, it feels really bolstering to have that level of information. These are 8 sessions. They're 75 minutes long each, so it's a lot. That's 12 hours of material where I'm talking you through all kinds of mind body stuff. So, Lynn, I'm glad you enjoyed that, got a lot out of it, and I look forward to working with you on it. Now, with respect to your question, an uptick during the night, which wakes you up. Those, first of all, onsets and upticks in my system, that's all emotions column. But when you wake up in the middle of the night with a symptom, there's really only one thing that can be, because the only thing that's really on is your emotional life. It's somewhere in the background. The unconscious continues. Remember, doubt is more of a conscious thing. Sometimes it's a little semi-conscious, meaning you're not totally aware of it, but it's not buried in the unconscious. The doubt can be discovered from conscious thinking. Emotions can go under the surface and totally beyond our detection, and especially when we're asleep. So I know you couldn't remember a dream, but I guarantee you were having one. That is, you were having at least some kind of internal emotional experience that would have woken you up. Now, that's how we can understand what happened. But your question is, how do I deal with this? If you can't even remember the dream, it's hard to gain access to, well, what was it about? If you knew what the dream was, we could think about, okay, how did this relate? And I want to say this. What we would be looking for if you could remember the dream is the same thing we're going to do even if you can't find the dream. If you remembered the dream, we would actually say, how did this dream relate to what happened the day before? I want to remind you all, we are moment to moment beings. It all happens in the moment. So whatever happens with symptoms, it's happening right then. Either something's happening in your world if you're awake, or if you're asleep, it's something from that day before that you're now processing, and boom, there it is. That's how you can understand it. Now let's talk about how to deal with it. First thing is this, Lynn. When people aren't sure how to understand something, they can feel confused. They certainly can feel a lack of certainty, or they can have questions, and those are 3 of the 4 forms of doubt. And by the way, they also can have fear, which is the 4th. So you can have all kinds of forms of doubt. So the first thing I want you to do actually is combat doubt, believe it or not. The first thing is to say, I'm going to understand this, because even if I don't remember the dream now, these emotions aren't going anywhere. They're going to pop up again in my waking life. I don't need to worry that I've lost this information or I can't get it. So my brain is trying to tell me something, and I'm going to get the message. If you calm yourself down there, you might even be able to just go back to sleep and say, or if the symptom goes down enough, and say, okay, I don't need to deal with this now. I'll get to it later. If the symptom continues, though, then I want you to return to what was going on for you the day before. Because whatever's going on for you at night is always colored by what went on the day before. We're really processing things hugely. And so what happened 2 days ago, not so relevant anymore. We move very, very fast. This is actually one of the reasons I find in the mind-body world when people are like, oh, search for the emotion that you've been having for 6 months or a year or 2 years or 8 years. That's absurd. I don't mean it as criticism so much as just helping to bolster against doubt. We change so much in our emotional lives. We can't go searching for something even 2 days ago. So return to just the day before, maybe even just the night before, and look for the broad themes that were active. Did you interact with important people in your life? Was there a certain theme from your emotions column that got activated? It's all going to point you in the right direction. One of the reasons I love my column system, it gives a roadmap for what to do. And this is an emotions column issue. So we go straight to the emotions column. You could even run down, if you've made a list of your emotional themes, run down it and be like, which one applies here? And you could even just look at it and be like, which one does it feel like? And you'll get a feeling. If you're intuitive at all and you're aware at all, you'll be like, oh, no, I don't think I was feeling unsafe. Feeling disrespected. Oh, boom. We've got lots of clues that can get us there. Okay. Now, I was just saying something out of thin air that I was making up, but my system is designed to give you little guide points that get you in the ballpark. so that you can start to figure out what happened. Now, that can give you something to do in the night, even as you're thinking about this. Don't give up the idea that you can find out what it is. Use those themes. And if you start to get a feeling that it's one of those, then see what you can link up within that. Okay. That's one thing. One other thing you can do to deal with this is more of a long term preventative thing. Before you go to sleep, spend about 10 or 15 minutes thinking about your day. Think about what bothered you, what wasn't easy in that day. And that preps you. And it makes it so that all that doubt fighting that you're doing and all that emotional awareness actually follows you into sleep. That part of your brain will be a little more active and it'll help prevent this. So I've given you a way to prevent it from happening and a way to, look at those emotional themes and figure out what's going on, whether you can remember a dream or not. Lynn, let me know if that helps. Great question. Okay, Tula says recognizing doubt, very important. Thank you. And it's also about boundaries. Real estate people want things from me. Family members, dying relatives want me to handle. How to say no so my body doesn't have to. Oh, Tula. First of all, my heart goes out to you about this. These are very hard things, and they're the kind of things that cause symptoms. There's a reason that Sarno talked about the responsibility years as times when people tend to get symptoms, because it's a lot, and our bodies are having to say no for us. So, in fact, Gabor Mate has a book called When the Body Says No, I think it's called. And I actually haven't read that book yet. I can't wait. But while I'm writing the book, I'm having trouble getting a lot of reading in. I did a lot of reading for the book, but at this point, I'm getting ready to finish off the book. So this concept of when the body says no, I just find a very helpful concept, even just in the title. Because what we can do is, if we can learn to say no, then your body doesn't have to. And that's your question, Tula. How do you do it? So there's a couple of things that we probably would need to get in place for you. And I do know you a bit by now. So I have some ideas about how that could go specifically for you, but also just for the people who are listening in general who may have some similar questions or similar situations. I need to help you think about, how do you actually say no? And I used to have a lot of trouble saying no, but I have certain tricks that help me now. So here's one trick that can really help, Tula. I'm just going to give you one or two to start with because, how do you eat an elephant? So one is this. You need to remember that everybody is on their own journey and you are not responsible for their journey. You're not responsible to say yes to every request that they ask. You're not responsible to answer every question they ask. You're not responsible to be there all the time. And I'm not advocating for becoming a not nice person. What I'm saying is, I think that you take on a lot of responsibility. And when it comes to boundaries, I used to find it very hard to set boundaries, partly because I thought, how do I set a boundary while taking so much responsibility? Well, here's the thing. You don't have to take that much responsibility. You got to be good to people. You got to give them the best shot they can have of, doing a good job in the situation or having a good experience. But might need to know some specifics, but like, if a real estate person needs something from you and you've got things to do, here is a power column action step that wouldn't have occurred to me when I wasn't so good at this. I sometimes think things like, they can wait. It's actually okay for them to wait. Say, I'm going to have to get back to you. So I want you to give yourself permission to let the other person be frustrated with you or angry, because especially if they're posing some demands that are just too much, you've got to be able to say no. And the way that you're going to be able to say no is if you actually give yourself permission to do it. And I don't just mean permission like go through the motions and do it. I want you to actually think about why it makes sense that you actually do have permission. You don't have to answer something right away. Or if you can't handle something, you can delegate. I want you to handle it. You could even have the guts to say, okay, listen, I can consider handling it, but is there some reason you think I should be the one to do all the work? I actually like to kind of call people out on these things sometimes, because you know what? People can really misbehave. In your power column, don't be afraid to get out there and make them work a bit harder. It happens all the time. People are saying, you know, "You've gotta, do this for me. You gotta do that for me." Well, there are times where people just want you to do the work, and if you call them out on it, it can get pretty uncomfortable for them, and they are like, "Okay, wait, hold on." You might find that they kinda just disappear when that happens. So, the main idea here, Tula, is let's get you in your power column. Let's remind you why you don't have to take on all that responsibility. They're on their own journey. They gotta figure out what they have to do. You are not responsible for everybody. In fact, the fact that you take such responsibility is, it's a great sign of who you are as a person. I love that about you, but I don't always love that for you. And I want you to be able to back up and recognize, you know what? I actually have control over how much responsibility I'm going to take for this. Do what you need to do, but don't satisfy everybody's responsibilities that they heap on you. Okay? It's too much. Let me know if that makes sense to you. Okay. Kristen Park has a question on Instagram. Do you think the mind can create something that feels like swollen in my back, not spine related, more kidney area? Feel it when I lay down and inhale mostly. Had an ultrasound over a year ago. Said everything looked normal. Definitely feeling a lot of fear, doubt about this. Kristen, my first answer, I think you will find quite relieving. Yes, I think the mind is perfectly capable of creating that sensation. Here's the thing. If the body is capable of having that sensation, then your mind body experience can co-opt it and make that happen. So, uh, the chance of this being mind body is astronomically high, especially because you had an ultrasound. I know it was over a year ago, but that's still not that long ago. The chance of suddenly there being something is unlikely. I will say this, if you want to get it ruled out by a doctor, I would sure get it ruled out by a doctor, but I'm not saying that because I think there's something wrong. I would be utterly shocked. This sounds like the kind of thing I've experienced all the time. I sometimes am just lying there and I'm like, oh man, it feels really sensitive here. And it can feel like an internal organ or it can feel like a muscle. My body's talking all the time. And so is it possible for there to be this swelling feeling or even actual swelling and, have it feel related to the kidney? Yeah. I don't want to steer you wrong here. I'm not a medical doctor. So go get it checked out if you're worried at all. But along the way, I really wouldn't worry too much about it because this sounds very in line with a mind body kind of thing. So let's start there. It seems very in line with the kind of thing a mind body experience can have. So I want to know what you think from there. Okay. All right. Sarah Igo said, "Hi, Dan. I'm able to stand and walk for up to 2 hours now. Good. Still working on sitting, big sensations with very short trials. My question, when I have concern about my stamina, such as volunteering at my daughter's school, I do fine. But when I'm doing something enjoyable like shopping, bam, stiffness and pain ensue." Wow. Sarah, what you just said is brilliant observations. And this is how we beat doubt, by the way. We observe things. Doesn't happen when I'm, you know, doing something where I'm responsible to another person or something with my daughter. But when I'm doing something just for me, enjoyable, boom, there it is. So I don't know you well enough to know, Sarah, what the specifics might be, but I will tell you that what you're saying speaks to something that I've seen many times, which is when people become powerful or if they feel guilty about doing things that they like, that can lead to a symptom spike. That's going to require what I would call power column work, Sarah, where we need to figure out why are there conditions on your enjoying yourself. I don't know what they are, but I'll give you an example. This is pulling it out of thin air, but for some people, they feel that they really got the message that they weren't valid enough or didn't deserve to be happy and or weren't allowed or it would be dangerous in some way. And all of these things they have built up over time and they stay in our minds. And then when we go to try to do something we like, all of that kind of trauma history can hit us. I'm not saying you had that, by the way, Sarah. I don't know. But I would want you to consider, and I can help you kind of consider it together. If you want to contact me directly, we can talk about it. It's Dan at crushingdoubt.org, or you can check out my website and join the groups, whatever you want to do. The website's www.crushingdoubt.org. And, we can talk about whatever this is. I say you make sense and your symptoms make sense. So we just need to make sense of what it is. But there is a reason this happens. You're not making that up. And there's something really important about it. Okay. So let's keep exploring this. And your observation, though, that they're different, that's not an accident. There is something there. If we can understand it, we're in business making that change. Okay. Sarah says, interesting. Also, adrenaline in a power situation. Interesting. I'd have to talk more about what you're thinking with that, but yeah, it could be that something about the excitement maybe doesn't feel good. I used to have this thing where I would get excited, especially if I was competitive, and it would be like an adrenaline. This is when I was still having back pain, and it would be like an adrenaline rush down the side of my back. So yeah, adrenaline can do it. There's just lots of ways to understand what is happening, and I just want to encourage you. It's understandable. We just have to figure out what it is. Okay, Lucy Jane, I see you here. Thanks for joining us. What did I miss? All right. Okay, we've got something coming in from YouTube. Give me 1 second. Okay, Dorisa said, I have 2 or 3 areas that won't leave. I have Chrissy's issue. Okay, so interestingly, I think that overall stiffness is one of the ones that doubt relies on to cling to most. It's really convincing. It's kind of all around the body. It makes it feel hard to feel like we can get past it. There's lots of symptoms that are like that, that are more likely to cling on. But here's the thing. Don't treat any symptom differently than any other symptom. Your entire experience is basically mind-body. It's almost always mind-body. If you run into a brick wall, it will hurt for purely physical reasons, though it will probably also hurt for mind-body reasons. If you have a true illness, you won't feel well for a little bit, and then you'll get better. But the vast majority of experience is mind-body, and I cannot believe how many times I see just how far that extends. So we can keep talking about it, and please do keep talking about it, because I got to get your doubt down. And to get your doubt down, I need to know what you're thinking. Doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. So let's have a dialogue about it. Okay, Robert Stefan says, finished Sarno's Divided Mind a week ago. Chronic back pain, stiffness has been suppressed. My psyche is conjuring up some new surprises. Okay, I was swimming laps today and felt some anxiety and panic. Wow, Robert. So this is an example of what Sarno talked about as the symptom imperative. First of all, I know that it's really uncomfortable to have anxiety and panic. In fact, sometimes that can feel like the absolute worst thing. But what I want to encourage you is the symptoms are on the move. This is exactly what Sarno would say. I think he's right about it. I'm actually really excited for you, because if you just don't fall into the worry that this anxiety and panic is now permanent, which it isn't, treat that just like another symptom. And I can already hear you thinking about it the right way. But, if you get hung up on certain things, I can certainly help. Just send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org. We can talk about how I can help. And, okay, Robert Stephan says, like you're dying, that kind of anxiety and panic. There's nothing worse. Truly. I mean, I had that horrible back pain and it was so, so bad. But then later, I had a lot of panic and anxiety. And it did keep going, like Robert's saying. And it was the worst. I get it. But Robert, don't panic about the panic. Even though it's understandable that you would, I want to encourage you that what this is all that pent-up emotion, whatever it was that you thought you needed to protect yourself from. It's coming to the surface, and it's not going to be bad. I promise you it's not going to be bad. So breathe. I want to encourage you about one other thing. When you're having these panic attacks, it can be very, very helpful to do something. I find it helpful to meditate. And my meditation is very simple. I just repeat a certain mantra. I breathe in a certain way. I can teach it to you if you want to get in contact. And it'll calm you down. And sometimes people even need a little bit of medication to help for a little bit while you're processing something. You're processing something big. The thing that Sarno does is he helps people get past the symptoms. And then what comes next? Now, when I was working with people at the beginning of my mind-body work, I would help people with the symptoms, and then inevitably whatever was underneath would come to the surface, and then I'd be doing kind of longer term therapy. Now that's not what I really want to be doing. I want to be a mind body expert who helps people with these things and then gets them moving on their way, and then they can do the emotional processing with someone else if they need to. You can do emotional processing with me, but if it's longer term, I get somebody set up with somebody who can do that. But when we discover the symptoms and they start to move, a lot of things can get uncovered, and then we might have to deal with something just for a little bit. So use whatever you can to calm yourself down. Meditation can be very helpful. Um, Again, a little bit of medication sometimes can help as well, though I don't think you need to rush to that. Let's see if we can get it calmed down with meditation. And also, Robert, if we can start processing whatever's going on for you emotionally, and in my emotions column, we do that. If you want to work with me on it, I can help you get all of the themes laid out so that you can really understand, why am I panicking here? What is this really about? And just by bringing it to your conscious brain, it won't have the symptom. So there's a lot we can do and a lot we can do really fast. I'd love if you want to get in contact with me, we can talk about it. Okay. All right. Let's see. Teresa says, my husband will cut people out of his life if he feels disrespected. So that's about the boundaries we were talking. I do that a lot more than I used to. I used to be very just like, let me make sure I give to everybody all the time. And, sometimes you can't. You got to set a boundary. Lynn says, thank you. Very helpful. I'm glad, Lynn. Thanks so much. Let's keep at it. Tula then says, I love that. And why am I responsible for that? Very helpful. Give myself permission. Yes. Ask them that question. Have the guts to do that. You're saying I need to do this. Why? Why me? Huh? Okay. Jane Smith says, thanks, Dr. Dan. Appreciated your take on Dr. Hansom's quote. That helps me sort things out. I'm glad. Thank you. Okay. Teresa said, I did all of that fear loop, then digestive, and after that anxiety. So symptoms do move around. And one of the added benefits, I think, of the columns is there's an overarching picture of why is this all actually happening the way that it is, so that you can see why it moves the way that it does. Okay, what did I miss? Catherine Toomer, thank you for your patience. Hi, Dr. Dan. It's amazing me the degree to which I am seeing myself as and being a person with less ambivalence. So a couple weeks back, I encouraged Catherine to challenge that idea of herself. She described herself as an ambivalent person. So she says, it began with questioning what I have not questioned, that I am an ambivalent person, right? You suggested it, made it an action step, and I added another action step about appealing to the kind of love in me and in others that is not ruled by ego. Maybe that has helped too. But today was rough, but beautiful. I had so much to do, all masked because I am on COVID day 10. In the past, I would have had ambivalence about whether I was doing too much or having others depend on me too much, or. Today, there was no ambivalence. I knew I had chosen what to do, I could do it, and I just needed to handle whatever feelings, pains, etc. came up. It was hard to do, but very good to do. I see this as continuing to work in Power Column and having success there too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Catherine, this is so great. And thank you for sharing this positive story. What it shows, and it's something that I've really come to feel. I'm passionate about all of this, but I think it's really important that we start to rethink therapy. Therapy has a lot of good aspects, but I think one of the things that it doesn't do so well is it tends to give us a picture that we can just work to understand ourselves, but we're really kind of stuck with who we are, when really who we are is a construct of how we think of who we are. And that's doubt. So they're letting doubt fly in under the radar. And I can't tell people enough how important it is to challenge doubt, even in a therapeutic process. Don't accept how you're thinking about you until you really looked at it and you're like, yeah, you know what? That is me. Okay, I can accept that. But a lot of times that's not the way it is. I was a very shy kid. I couldn't have imagined doing the things I'm doing now. I challenged that. I'm totally different now. Thanks for sharing, Catherine. Positive Wellness. Good to see you here on Instagram. All right, let's see. We've got a couple minutes left here. Cindy Krista said, read Sarno and all that. I have mostly mastered the doubt stuff, but 7 months ago, IBS came back with a fury and won't leave. Okay. So, Cindy, we can discover why. And really, that's the key to the column system. You make sense and your symptoms make sense. We can find out why. We can look back at 7 months ago and explore what's happening here. I mean, I once worked with a woman who she came to see me and she had had heartburn for 9 years. And when I explored what was happening for her, she had just decided to not have kids. And boom, the heartburn was there, but she never made that connection. The minute she made that connection, it was gone. So, Cindy, there's something that was missed 7 months ago in the emotions column. There's something that was going on emotionally there. However, you don't even need to discover that. If you can't find that, we just need to bring the doubt down. This is going to go away. The only reason it's still here is that it's gotten you to think, well, it doesn't make sense, and I don't have any way to get rid of it. So doubt, I know you said you've mostly mastered the doubt stuff, and I 100% believe you. But doubt can climb in the window in certain places, and I think it has found one way in. And there's many ways to work at this. I don't think it will take long. So hang in there with it. But I would say let's get in touch. Let's talk about how we can get at this doubt. Okay. It's Dan at crushingdoubt.org, or check out my website, www.crushingdoubt.org, or come back here and we can keep talking about it. But there are answers. Okay. Hang in there. Okay. Lynn Slavensky says, Dan, you suggested looking to the day before to understand the uptick during the night. Could it also be something that would happen the next day, or is back look more likely? Great question, Lynn. No, it can be forward looking. Although I guess I would suggest what that means is part of your day before was the anxiety about the coming day. So mostly it's back looking, but it can relate to what's coming up. Absolutely, 100%. So look to the day before and look to the day ahead. You don't need to go a day out in either direction, more than a day out in either direction, though. So thank you for that observation. That's helpful and hopefully to you, but helpful to the viewers as well. Okay, Kristen Park says, thanks, Dan. You're welcome, Kristen. I hope that did help. And if you didn't get enough of an answer, I always say your questions need to be answered to your satisfaction. So come back here if you need to, or contact me however you need to. Let's get your questions answered. Okay, Robert Steffen says, thanks, I'm on board. Awesome, Robert. Let's get this done. I don't want you living in panic. That's really uncomfortable, but it's just a symptom. And it can be mastered, and it can be mastered quickly. So let's talk. Okay, last question here before we wrap up. Sam Girl says, I can't get out of the loop of my long COVID symptoms. Sometimes I can control them and feel normal, and then sometimes I worry if it's real symptoms or my mind. I seem to be going back and forth constantly. Okay. Sam, I'm going to give you one little recommendation. Well, I guess it's a way of thinking that I think is really going to help you. If you can control them at all, at any point in time, it's not long COVID. In fact, I don't really believe in long COVID. I'll just go on the record with that. Long COVID is very understandable, but what it really is COVID has scared the crap out of us, and we're worried these things will linger, and we're hearing that they can linger. So we're getting these really bad messages. But if you can control them some of the time, it is mind-body. The minute you can start to control symptoms at all, you know it's mind-body. And so that's the way I would think about it. It doesn't matter what I think, but I want to lend that to you. Hopefully that can start to bring down the doubt enough and start to get you on the path of fighting that doubt. Now, in the meantime, if you need my help, you know where to find me. Let's talk about it. But the main thing that I'm saying to hang on to is if you can control it at all, it's mind-body. You can't control a broken arm. If you can control this, then it's mind-body. Mind-body stuff, by the way, it goes really, really far. Don't underestimate it. Okay? Teresa said, things I have to, I think, Teresa, you were in the middle of saying something but didn't finish. So come back maybe next time because we're going to have to wrap up for tonight, Teresa. But I'm interested in what you wanted to say. Bean Dip and Rody Jangles, good to see you here. Guys, it's been a pleasure being here with you. I just find it so rewarding to answer these questions for you guys because it's exactly what I would have wanted. And honestly, it's helpful to me too. When you guys ask questions, I go over them again and I think, yep, okay, this is hanging together. I know why this is. And it keeps me on a very even keel with myself. So I am very hopeful that my answers have been helpful to you guys. I want you to keep pursuing your answers. Even if I didn't give them well enough, ask more. Follow-up questions. Keep at it. Questions are the gold standard of fighting doubt. Raise them. and let's get them answered. Okay, guys, thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing you guys same time next week. That's 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And it was a pleasure being here with you all. Have a good night. Thanks, Robert, and thank you all.